What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fit, Healthy, and most of all, Happy podcast. I'm your coach and host, Josh, here with
his co-host and co-coach, KG, and I'm back on the microphone.
And this is Motivation Monday, so it is time to get fired up, inspired, and see some positive change towards living a fitter, healthier, and happier life. But before we do that, we have an exciting announcement. I'm going to have my drum roll started. It's Kyle's birthday, so if you haven't already, make sure to say happy birthday to Kyle. Hit him up on Instagram. Let's make his day and give him a lot of well wishes. This isn't just any birthday anymore. He's officially left the 20s range where I'm currently there because I'm a lot younger. Not actually. I'll be 30 as well this year, which is crazy. But this is a big one. It's really exciting vaulting into this next stage of life, this next decade, if you will. And it'll be really exciting to see how amazing that's going to be, especially with how great and amazing the 20s have been. So make sure to give him some well wishes. Anything you want to add there, birthday boy?
Yeah, I'm just excited. And I feel like, every year when you have a birthday, it's a great time to reflect on what's working, what's not, what your goals are, what you're happy with, what you want to improve. Like, I do that every single time. Like, New Year's comes, but obviously birthdays is just a huge one to me. But when it comes to 30, I'm like, holy, it's like a whole new decade. So I am excited to give back as well. And I am going to be giving away, and this is going to be something incredible. It's going to be a discounted offer for people. Just as I spend time reflecting, I spent a lot of time reflecting on how grateful I am to be in this position, to be here, to be talking to you guys on the microphone all the time, making educational content. I'm going to be doing 30% off for my 30th birthday, which is an amazing promo. You do not want to miss out. And it's just my way to give back, but also to help you succeed and feel your absolute best the way that you deserve. That's what we're here for. So you can also message me birthday promo to Instagram at ColossusFit, ColossusFit. I can't wait to change some of your lives after my 30th birthday.
Yeah, we've never done 30% off, but I think hitting the big 30 really, it kind of permits it. It allows it for sure. So don't miss out on that because that is huge savings. It's a great time to celebrate the upcoming success and growth that will be coming Kyle's way. So hit us up, saying birthday promo on Instagram. Also, just be sure to hit him with a happy birthday on our Instagram. We'll do some kind of post around it. You'll see it up there. So make sure to drop some well wishes. But now we're going to go ahead and jump into today's episode with our primary question. In Motivation Monday, we like to answer your questions because if you're thinking of a question, something's on your mind, chances are it's on other people's mind as well. And I think the more we can learn together, the better we're going to do. So that question is, I want to get extra lean for this upcoming summer. I'm 176 pounds and I want to lose about 30 pounds, but I want to do it sustainably. I work out 4 times a week and eat healthy. What action steps do you recommend I take?
This is a great question, and actually I just looked at the schedule with summer. I always check in on that just so I can make content and make sure it's like relevant based off of the time frame. We're 2 months out, which is pretty crazy. Time's going to fly by. I know there's just a lot of things that go on leading up to summer. Some people maybe have birthdays, celebrations, and we always have to account for that there may be extra variables and extra obstacles depending on what you have going on leading up to summer. But I think this is a great question. And no matter where you're at, like if you have 15 pounds, 10 pounds, 20, this individual has 30 pounds, there's always 3 things that need to be taken into consideration. And this was Josh's analogy years ago, and I loved it, where it's just like when you're sitting on a stool, you have 3 legs. If you pull one leg out, you start to tip over. You pull 2 legs out, you topple over, right? And a lot of these people that are trying to do these things don't have all 3 legs in place. And that's just going to be your nutrition, your training, and then your accountability and lifestyle factors. So starting off with nutrition, you need to be in a deficit. Now, if you have more to lose, you have to be in a heavier deficit. So you have to make sure that you're losing at least 2 pounds per week, depending on, once again, how much you have to lose and the type of person you are based off of your goals and whatnot, right? So you have to be strictly counting calories. And this is why I want to bring it up, because this individual said, hey, I eat healthy, but for some people, eating healthy is very different, right? A lot of people eat healthy, but not be in the right calorie range, helping them become shredded and essentially lose body fat. Now, training as well, like this is where I see a lot of people go wrong, is that they have a lot of good habits in place. They eat healthy, they eat protein, they're, aware of that stuff, and they work out as well. but they're not exactly doing the right stuff. And we're going to be talking about strength training later, but I find a lot of people just aren't actually properly doing that. They're just, I see endless amount of times people just going in and just doing cardio, thinking that that's what's going to help them get there, but they're not exactly happy with the results they get from that. And then on top of that, really having accountability is just going to be probably one of the biggest things, because when you have someone by your side, it makes such a big difference. I always talk about it, and I don't want to spend too much time harping on this exact subject, but I see a lot of people make some good progress, but then, obstacles come up, they stall, they hit a plateau, whatever the case is. So really having someone by your side, and it could be family members if that helps you. It could be, friends, not always the best because they won't call you out, but having a coach, of course, and joining me for this birthday promo is probably going to be the greatest thing you can do, because we have a challenge that's going to be taking place, as I'm sure you've heard us talk about, where there's going to be thousands of dollars in prizes, and that's going to be starting May 5th. So you'll be coming on board at the most perfect time leading up to summer, which will be incredible. But yeah, I could talk about this all day, but those are the things I want you to consider, and doing it specifically day to day, every single day for the next 8+ weeks, you'll be in a really good spot. Like if you do 8 weeks of dieting and you're in a big enough deficit, you could definitely lose 20 pounds, just depending on how much you have to lose, but you have to be consistent. You can't have 1 week on, 1 week off and just, kind of keep going up and down. You have to stay the course, and you have to have someone checking in on you consistently.
Yeah, that's so well said. And you already know my answer will very much be the same. If you want to be ultra fit, it's just doing those macro things well. So obviously taking care of your nutrition, in this case, being in a deficit, and to make sure you're in a deficit, you need to track your food and be consistent to it. That you're actually training hard and you're on a tough regimen. And then most importantly, that you're seeing that plan through. And I think where a lot of people go wrong is they don't set any plans or timelines, and they just end up cutting for forever, or it makes the goal less serious. If you set a goal to do it in 6 months, you'll find a way to take that full 6 months or longer, or keep delaying it. And you'll be like, oh, Easter came up, so I ate more. I was at someone's birthday, so I ate more. And you'll just teeter-totter with it. Whereas when you actually give yourself a realistic timeline, you break this down. So obviously 30 pounds is a longer timeline. Like it's a significant amount of weight depending on how lean this person is. If they're not very lean at all, you could do it a lot more aggressively. You could do 3 pounds a week in about 10 weeks. If they are decently lean, then you might want to go at a slower rate, maybe 2 pounds per week. And obviously that would take 15 weeks, but you can account for that. You can account for more difficult weeks as well. But I think one different example that I'll give that I think a lot of people need to hear is to just stop being so soft with it. Like when you're cutting, cut. Even me, I've been bulking a little bit out of my shoulder injury because I wanted to make sure I didn't lose too much muscle, and I wanted to try to regain if I can. We'll see how that works out with the DEXA scan coming up. I think that'll be a really good reflection of what I've done. But as I transitioned into tightening up my calories this week, it's just a really nice ability to be able to snap your fingers and just say, okay, I'm going to lock into what works. And I've had clients that do this that see amazing results really, really quick. And then there's the fence sitters where you're half in, half out. And anytime there's a little inconvenience, it's easier to give into it. And most often that decision fully comes from one bad decision in the day. It's late at night and someone comes over to your house and they're like, hey, I brought you cookies. Why they bring you cookies, I don't know. But you've hit your calories, you've done your day, you've prepped, you've done your 80-20, you've done everything right. But you're like, this cookie looks so good. So you break your goal and instead give in to that short-term desire. And then by doing that, the next day, maybe it ripples. And then maybe you lock in for 3 days. Then you do it again. Whereas when you actually just make a point to really commit and see it through, it's science, right? Obviously, you're in a deficit, you're training hard, the weight just peels off, and it's really, really linear, consistent progress. Then you can break out of it. It's when you're wishy-washy with your goals that you're really hurting yourself. And that's most likely why you're not being ultra fit. And I've done it both ways as well. But I tell you, when you're weighing things, you're prepping ahead, you're still having a social life, you're like, if I'm going out, I've already pre-logged these amount of drinks I'm going to have or whatever it may be. Like, it's just such a game changer. And I even remember I was out with one of my buddies. He was dialed in his cut. He was losing consistently and we're all out. And then he's like, I'm only having 2 chicken tenders. It's what I've logged. I've saved enough for 3 drinks tonight, which is a little bit crazy, but I'm only having protein and veggies for dinner. And like that commitment in that moment, a lot of people would say, oh, just let loose. Don't worry about it. Just go out, have whatever. But by doing that in that moment, you're probably going to undo the progress for the week. Then you're going to keep that same standard into next week. And that's why a lot of people like really just go nowhere, unfortunately. So like if you actually want to build a great physique for summer, you really just need to lock in more than anything. Like you need your goal to be bigger than that short-term desire of having an extra bite. For me, it's avoiding having extra portions. I like to have multiple portions at dinner. I'd love to have like 3 big plates if I can. That's just not necessarily something I can do. And it's calling yourself out on your excuses too. Like if you're logging things after you eat them, that's effectively useless because you're just going to smudge the numbers to be what you want. Whereas you can find solutions. Like tonight, I'm having homemade pasta and it's harder to log that. But what I've already done is pre-logged about 650 grams of lean beef sauce as well as cooked pasta. Now, this isn't going to be 100% perfect, and there's definitely ways I could be even more precise with this, but it's a much better start than freeballing it and just putting the pasta to whatever number I want it to be. But by doing this, engaging with my hunger signals, it really makes cutting quite easy, and you can still have all your favorite foods, you can still do all your favorite things, but it's just really important. Like if you're going to lock in, you got to lock in. And I think like this question is just on my mind as I've really come to do this week because I really want to optimize outside of my injury. I feel like anytime I get injured, I want to just do better. And even with this point of us getting older, like I just don't want to be like, oh, I used to be in my best shape or whatever it may be. So if you want to lock in for summer, you got to do it and you got to stop putting it off. You got to stop making excuses. All the time we'll hear people say, oh, like maybe I'll just wait a few months and then I'll start with you. Those few months pass, we don't hear from those people again. Whereas people that come into our program, they're like, I've had enough. I'm hiring help. You guarantee results. Let's see what you're all about. And then we get them those results. They're like, oh, I'm so thankful I did this. And it's the easiest to lock in and not to give into those micro moments when you have accountability. Because when you have accountability, it's someone to call you out on it. It's not comfortable. But if someone's like, hey, you say you want to lose weight, and I say this to my clients all the time, I'm like, what happened this weekend? Like we just went off the rails. Like we have an opportunity to improve here. And then usually like next week we can tighten that up. We see the change. Like I feel amazing. I still went out, did what I wanted to do. I just did it with more control. Then you feel like in line with where you're at. And then most importantly, you get momentum. And momentum is like a cheat code. When you have momentum, everything's easy. And perhaps you've had a time where you were cutting and everything was just super linear, consistent, easy, not even a challenge. And that's because you built that momentum. And then I also wanted to add the best way to do that is just taking small steps. Like a good example is I wanted to take magnesium glycasenate. I butchered it, but that's the gist of it at night. I've done it here and there. I remember sometimes I don't. It's just not realistic for me to wish to take it more. Instead, I set a reminder on my phone, take it at 8:30. Yesterday, 8:30 pops up. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do this. So actually having mechanisms to hold you to what you say you're going to do, and then that will become habit. I'll start taking that consistently. And once again, just like anything else, you make a habit of always tracking your food, always putting it in first, always logging your food, always reviewing the data. Like they're just easy edges to force you into that routine of locking in instead of just wishing for it. So once again, a lot on my mind because it's kind of where I'm at right now with everything. And I think it was a really good question, but as a whole, it's the macro that matters the most.
I'm really glad Josh brought those points up because I feel like you can have the most perfect plan, but then if you just don't execute it, it doesn't really matter, right? Like if you search up a really good workout routine or even, if you have people send you over some stuff and you know what you need to do, but if you just don't do it, it's not going to work. But I see like so many people failing within all this because, Josh had mentioned just like not fully committing. That's like a huge mistake. I've made this mistake a few times and I hate it because you're kind of in, you're kind of out. Like you say no to things, but then you say yes to a lot of things. And then you don't really know what you're doing. Like, cause you're kind of like, what am I doing? Like you feel like you're endless dieting. You're not really seeing change. And then you kind of just end up saying, well, whatever, I'm not doing this anymore. And I'm probably going to look up the stats afterwards, but I'd be willing to bet you that more people fail within their, we can say diets or shred phases or cut phases, whatever you want to call it, than people that succeed. And it's not like, yes, people don't have the right programs for the most part, but it's just that they don't lock in or they just, maybe don't want it bad enough. And that's something I think most people need to sit down with themselves and think is like, how can I get myself to like really want it and motivate myself to keep staying the course when those sweets pop up, when the weekend kind of could get away from you when things happen. And, I see this holding a lot of people back because they say they're like, oh, I'm going to lose this amount of weight. And then what happens? You check in, no weight's been lost, and maybe they've even gone backwards. So I think even a big thing to think about And something for myself, like, is kind of reverse engineer, like, where do you want to be in a specific time frame? So for this individual, it might be 15 weeks. That's totally fine. You can go through to summer and you'll feel incredible and reverse diet out afterwards. You'll be in a good spot. But even myself, as I sat down and reflected like where I want to be, I want to lose 10 pounds in the next 6 weeks, which is totally achievable. I'm going to go all in. I know my calorie range. I know my workouts. I know my cardio protocols. And I really want it. Like, I want to be better. I want to do better. I'm turning 30. It's time for me to lock in. And so I have that reverse engineered of like 6 weeks from now where I want to be and what I want to do. We'll make sure to get a DEXA scan in the next little bit. We've got that as accountability. Josh has always helped me out and holding me accountable when I send him stuff or when I'm maybe even not doing great. He's there to help me out with that. But I think that's a big thing, is like being able to like start with like where you want to be and then reverse back, like, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to get to 1.5 pounds per week roughly and to be consistent with it? And you have that game plan in front of you, you consistently execute, and you really actually show up and fully commit and want it, you'll be a completely different person. And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong.
Yeah, they say everyone has a plan before they get punched in the mouth. That's Mike Tyson's quote, and I love that. And with dieting, everyone gets punched in the mouth all the time because, like I said, it's those little moments of weakness where you're watching a show at night and your spouse goes and grabs something you want. And you're like, oh, it's only a couple hundred calories. And then you end up eating a bunch of things, or that example of there being extra food or a bigger portion, or you order more food than you were supposed to, and you realize, you're like, oh, I have to save half the sub, but it's right in front of me, so I'd like to eat it. And then it's hard going back from that. So it's just a good reminder to actually set your goals in high standard if you want to achieve them. And when you rip through them too, it's very freeing because you feel a lot more in control and you're not like living in that state of regret because you're actually moving towards what you want to do. So if you want to see big change, and once again, there's an easy way to get there, and that's what our coaching all about, is optimizing these factors, finding this balance, and showing you how to navigate. Like, I still have no problem eating out. I still, like most people would say, oh, I don't know if it's great to try to like kind of maintain your calories around eating a bunch of pasta, but I can easily make it work. It's really not that complicated. And like, I can have all my favorite foods. I can still go to restaurants. I can do all these things I love absolutely guilt-free. And that's the tenet of what makes our coaching program so effective. Because if you can only lose weight when you cut out everything you love, that is not sustainable. And you're just going to end up in this phase where you lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, which is like the worst thing you can do for your physique. So with all those tips, like, it's just definitely something to think of. So hopefully that was helpful. And once again, absolutely doable to get off this weight and really build a killer summer physique. And if you've been slacking, now is your time to put in that work, because summer is going to creep up real quick. Once again, we'd love to make that happen. There's no better time between our challenge and Kyle's special birthday promo. This is like the absolute best time ever that's ever existed to sign up for coaching. So if you've been thinking about it and you want guaranteed results, so let us take care of that for you. Message us birthday promo to our Instagram at ColossusFit, ColossusFit. But now we're going to go ahead and go over into my quote, which is going to be really exciting. And that is that big things start small. And I love this because I remember when I started getting into fitness, I wanted to do a lot. And it's very easy to want to do everything, especially if you want to be really fit. You're like, okay, I need to be in the gym 5 times a week. I'm going to lift 90 minutes a week. I'm going to go on runs. I'm going to go on swims. I'm going to become a marathoner. Then I'm going to do a triathlon. Then like, it's crazy to have these crazy goals, but it's just like, what is your next step? What is that small step to actually produce action? And a lot of people will mess up by absolutely freezing and doing nothing because they won't even take the time to figure out what that next step is. So no matter where you're at in your journey, it's like, what is that next small step I can take to move you forward? And what I like about this, and I am always analyzing this in my life, is that once you take that step, it's very motivating. You feel good. You're like, okay, I'm seeing some progress, and it makes you want to keep doing that. So I just think no matter how ambitious your goal is, if it's absolutely terrifying or if it's kind of a medium-sized goal, just know it. You'll get towards it by taking small steps. So I just find really dumbing things down and breaking them into really micro pieces. It's very motivating for me. And then you just take that step after step, and before you know it, you're there.
I think, yeah, some people struggle with that because they feel like they need to just do like everything all at once. And I find those are the people who like usually either burn out or they just don't stay consistent with this enough. And I've learned it the hard way as well, right? Even if it's like any habit you want to start, if let's say you want to start to do a marathon, it'd be easy to be like, oh, I'm going to run, 10Ks or half marathons, whatever this week. It's like, no, just get out there for a few minutes, like build that habit. And to me, that's how most people truly succeed. So I thought that was great. And then my quote for this week is, talented people do more reps than untalented people. The reps make them talented. So I've been thinking about this a little bit because Josh sent me a podcast from Ed Milet, and it was quite good, and it really just got me thinking about repetitions, like repetitions for the people who are the best. And the example we could use is like Steph Curry. So for example, he's one of the greatest shooters of all time in the NBA, and you'd think like because he's gotten to a certain point, like he can just chill. Like when some people like do great things, you think, oh, well, they're talented or they've got good genetics, or they can just, relax. Like they've made it, you know what I mean? So the people who keep showing up for themselves, like even Steph Curry is an example, he still does over 500 shots every single day, which is crazy. And I think that's where some people don't realize, like in order to, and I'd like to compare this even to the fitness journey, right? Some people will think, oh, this person's fit or they have good genetics or whatever the case is. They can just kind of take their foot off the gas. But the truth is it's never ending. Like you have to consistently put in the reps to be great, to be in shape, to, do great things, whatever that looks like for you. And I just think it's such a good reminder, right? And I noticed that there's a lot of people, they don't realize this, but they think that if you want to just accomplish something great, or just, using the example of getting shredded or whatever the case is, maybe doing a powerlifting meet, you just show up a little bit and you do like maybe one course of a diet phase or a strength training program or whatever the case is. But the truth is, the more that you put in the reps long term, the more that you'll be able to stay great. And I like to look at these like ultra athletes as an example, because like they're the ones who are even if they've accomplished some of the most insane things in the world, they're still the ones there at 3 a.m. They're still the ones who are practicing day in and day out just consistently. So it's those consistent reps long term that just make you unstoppable. And it's something to think about for today.
Yeah, it's really well said. And I like that podcast a lot because it's just a reminder of doing the small things well. And you consider how many different opportunities in life are a rep. Like not hitting snooze every day is a rep, right? You're priming yourself to say, I don't hit snooze, and doing that every day. When you're going to a restaurant, you're making good decisions. That's a rep. When you're saying no to things when you know you don't need them, or they're not good for you, or they're going to make you feel bad, that's a rep. So the more you can do that and the more common it is to you, the easier it is to hit those shots like a great basketball player. And it's really, I think basketball, there's a lot of great analogies that come from it and a lot of good motivational videos. And it was cool seeing the March Madness. And I just think everything ties in really nice there. But one thought I had and one thing I liked was the concept of not falling into the trap of mourning a life you can still live. So there's that David Goggins quote about the saddest thing at the graveyard isn't the people that are buried there. It's that all the unfulfilled lives and ambitions that went with them. And just that thought alone. And I hear even as I'm getting older, as things are changing for people around me, like I used to be really in shape. I used to be healthy. I was less stressed. Like that time's passed for me to play sports. I have kids now. Like all these things, it really is never too late. And you see examples of this all the time. You see 80-year-old power lifters. You see amazing, just incredible feats. And even recently I heard a quote as well that impossible isn't a fact, it's a dare. And I really like that, because that dare to try to say, is impossible a thing? Impossible is nothing. And saying, I'm going to find a way to do it. And they say impossible is nothing to someone who tries. And I think that goes nicely into that concept of taking those small steps. So if there's a life you want to live, or something you want to fulfill, or something that's calling you, or something you'd like to achieve, don't give up on it. Like keep taking those small steps. And obviously we're still young by I think most markers, but as I get older, these are things to think about. And I think it's a great reminder that it really never is too late and you can do amazing things. I believe in the book Think and Grow Rich, they had mentioned someone who wasn't happy with their life and they went to law school in their 40s and ended up being a great lawyer through their 50s. So I just find stories like that to be very inspirational, whether your ambitions are work related, family related, health related, knowledge related, whatever it may be. I think it's a great reminder that impossible is nothing and you just need to take those baby steps towards what you're looking to achieve.
Yeah, I really like that. And the main thing that's been on the top of my head as well is just like finding your why. So even for me having a young baby still, she's 5 months. And I was thinking the other day, I was like, these are things I never thought about before, like kind of deeper whys within that. And I made a post the other day of just like some specific things that are motivating me to, be the best version of myself, once again, entering 30 as well. And 3 of those things, first of all, was just to be a jack dad. Like you got to have that as motivation. Like I think every person wants to, be in shape as a parent, or they should at least, in my personal opinion. Two is just carrying all the stuff that needs to be carried as like, you have a young kid, right? So I was at the airport carrying like so many different things. I was like, man, I'm glad I've put in all these reps over the years just to like be able to lug it all around. And I know for you guys who have like toddlers or younger kids and stuff, you probably realize then, I'm not there yet, but I see how crazy it is just like throwing them around, having energy and just doing all these great things that, you need to be strong for. And then number three, not anything that I need to worry about now, but just being a great example, right? So I'm very far from that still, but I use that and I think about these things now that it's like kind of newer to me. And I see a lot of parents struggling consistently. And I love when parents come into our program and they're just like, I want to be better. Like we've have so many newer, like, people who kind of just want to be better for themselves, but also for their family. And I think that's something that I really encourage. And this is something I really encourage you to sit down and think about as to like levels deeper than just like, yeah, of course it is nice to be shredded, but it's like why? And I think a lot of people, when you sit down and think of that why and the people you care about around you, it can be super motivating and it can help you stay on track when nutrition's tough, when training's tough. You think of that extra person that you might be doing it for, it could go a long way. So that's my thought for this week.
Yeah, it's easier, as I was saying earlier, to hold that goal in high regard when you actually have a really great mechanism behind it. And it's funny even seeing as my son's almost 3, just like the amount of energy he has and the craziness that's always going on. It's like a great reminder. I'm like, okay, I really do need to stay fit. I really need to set that standard. So when you can really lean in and find the levels deep of your why, and maybe your goal is to be fit, because first and foremost, you're like, I don't want to be out of shape. And then secondly, you're like, I actually want to look good on the beach. And then after that, you're like, and I really don't want to be out of energy so I can't play with my kids. And you're like, also, everyone in my family passes away younger. I don't want to have that. Like, and you can really narrow into what really motivates you. And oftentimes it's just not one source. It's a lot of different angles, but it helps you actually elevate that goal and see its importance and not give in to quick desire, if you will, and to really hold that consistent. So I think that all tied together really nicely. And that is our thoughts as well as our quotes. And now we're going to jump into someone who's been crushing in our coaching program. Who do we have today?
And this week, we're going to be shouting out Sarah, who's an amazing example of someone who got bikini ready just for overall life, but obviously summer as well. She lost 15 pounds. She tightened her waistline, and she just did such incredible things. Even her glutes, she was able to increase them 2 full inches while decreasing her waistline inches, which is absolutely incredible. So she did an amazing body recomposition. This is something a lot of people struggle with on their journey, not realizing that you can gain muscle in the areas you want to and lose body fat in some other specific areas. Obviously, very challenging to do, especially by yourself when you're emotionally attached to the results. You're not sure what you're doing. Like there are a lot of challenges for that, but Sarah's a prime example of someone who just showed up for herself. She crushed it, hitting new PRs, and she also just fixed her relationship with food, which is another amazing win. So there's so many different things past like her overall results. You can see on the screen her photos. She looks incredible and she crushed it there, but even deeper than that, like her overall, emotional state, her mental state, like every single part of the journey improved just from the results that came from that. So I think it's an amazing segue with the summer shred challenge that we have taking place. She's someone who absolutely crushed it within every piece of criteria that we had laid out. And yeah, it's just a couple short weeks away. And I truly believe that when you're in our program for this challenge, there's no way you can ever fail. And we have a money back guarantee. So amazing stuff, Sarah. And if you're looking to jump on board and get the results you deserve, once again, 30% off, message me birthday promo to Instagram at ColossusFit, ColossusFit.
And a huge shout out to Sarah for our second question out of the mailbag. I've got a family member that's been consistent with the gym, but only does cardio machines. How should I explain to them the benefits of strength training?
Yeah, it's a very great question. And hey, got to give a shout out for showing up to your family member. So that's the first thing. It's on that topic. I think it's always important to be able to praise someone for showing up, right? And even myself, I've actually been guilty of this and I try not to do it, where it's like you think someone could improve or do better in something and you just like kind of downgrade what they're doing, right? And it's always a good reminder. So that's like my first thing is like try to really show encouragement and lead by example. I know obviously it's easier said than done, but even myself, like I realized there's 2 main reasons why people don't strength train, or at least what I believe to be the main reasons. The first thing is that they don't realize, like they don't know what to do, right? When you go into the gym and you see an elliptical a bike, a treadmill, sometimes Stairmaster, depending on who the person is. You're like, oh, this is easy. Like I just press the button and I just start moving, right? Strength training is a lot more difficult. And I think that's something that holds a lot of people back. The second thing is just simply not realizing the benefits. I think a lot of people, they see cardio and they're like, oh, this is the greatest thing for me, right? And they just naturally think that that's what's going to be best for them, not realizing all the benefits within strength training. So for your specific family member, I could list out every benefit. There's so many great things, as you all know, if you're listening to this: stronger bones, better joint health, heart health, fat loss, metabolism, and so many amazing different things. But I want to give you a better answer. I want to encourage you to encourage that person in a way that it's going to resonate with them, right? So you can sit down with your specific family member and realize the type of person they are and what's going to motivate them. So I'm just going to use an example. Let's just say you're referencing your father and they love sports. They love to play golf. If you just go up to them and you talk about how they're going to live longer and that it's like good for their joints, like little things that will actually be a big thing, but may not mean a big thing to them. It may not sit with them as well as if you said, hey, you're going to add on 50 yards to your golf game and your swing, and like you're just going to be able to outperform anyone out there. Like this, let's just say that's their thing. That's their favorite hobby. That thing that you just shared with them might actually push them to not sign up, but to stay consistent with strength training or get consistent with strength training. So I think the biggest thing is knowing the type of person you're talking to and giving tips within that. If you know someone who's always been talking about living till they're a certain age, like there may be some people who do that in your family, and you realize they're not strength training, you could actually give them different tips and talk about the longevity benefits. Even when it comes to strength training, lower risk of heart disease, lower risk of stroke, cancer, diabetes, all that great stuff. And you reference it to that person, that might stick with them, but it may not stick to the other person who's obsessed with their golf stuff. So I think my main takeaway here is just to spend time knowing the type of person they are and showing them all the benefits from that based off of what you think will stick with them best. But that's my overall tip for this question.
Yeah, I love the concept of incentivizing and educating, because I think even for some people, they just don't know and they're like, oh, it's just what I'm comfortable with. And perhaps they're not comfortable strength training or they don't know the benefits. And even you could say, so why do you do that cardio? And it might just be, oh, it makes me feel good. You could be like, that's awesome. I think lifting weights will make you feel good. It's for longevity. You'll have better muscular health, less chance of getting injured. And I think as you highlight those benefits, a lot of people would see the light. The other thing you can do as well is get in there, show them. I think that goes a long way. Invite them to enjoy fitness with you. I always find that is an incredible motivator and something you could explore. But I loved all of Kyle's points there more than anything. And I like that example too of communicating in a way that actually makes it appealing to them. And all of us have different ambitions and goals. And I think you could even ask more about their goals. And by learning their goals, you'll have a better understanding of how you can direct them to the benefits of seeing that change and improving. I think it's really important too, like Kyle said, you don't just tear it down and be like, what a waste of your time. You're probably eating back all those calories you burn. What's the point of even having a gym membership? Ever heard of walking outside? Like, you're just going to naturally put that person on the offensive. They're not going to want to listen to you. So going at it from a position of care, educating, explaining, having a conversation, I think that's so important. And I really like Kyle's tips there.
Yeah. And I think if you, like Josh said, like actually invite them out and show them, like, first of all, you can help them with form because most people just don't understand form. You could send them our YouTube playlist, which we'll link down below, with 100+ exercises. And I think that'll help them out. But even as you're doing all that, like, to me, it's a lot easier to, like, let's say put a, family member through a workout and explain, like, this is going to help you in this way, right? If you're just like talking to them at the dinner table of like all the benefits, it's going to be harder for them to understand. Whereas if you're in the gym and you show, hey, every time you lift your arms over your head, this shoulder press you do, and you can explain that to them, obviously having the knowledge to explain it like in a way that like you understand and they can understand will be very helpful. But I think that's like just leading by example is a great way, but having them come along even for a session or two, I think will go a long way for sure.
All right. And for our third and final question for today's episode, how long should a cut be? And is it better to do it all in one shot or do mini cuts? So I think this answer is really dependent. As always, it depends, because if you're someone who needs to lose 200 pounds and you're severely obese, you're probably not going to one-shot that. Like, you're going to need to be smart and utilize phasings and diet breaks, and you need to be really intelligent with it. If you have a tiny little bit of weight to lose and you're already at a pretty low body fat and you're like, I need to lose 8 pounds, that's super doable. You could do that pound a week in 8 weeks. You could even spread it out over 10 and give yourself like a little diet break within there. The concept of a mini cut in general, I think people just like the concept of it because it sounds like a little cutesy bite-sized version of cut, and you're like, oh, I only have to suffer for 2 weeks. But mini cuts are really only good like if you're bulking or if you gained a little bit of weight because something happened in your life, maybe like you went away or you just had a busy week, whatever it is, and you're like, oh, I just need to tighten up my ship. That's kind of what a mini cut would be for. You could take off like that 2 to 4 pounds that kind of stacked on. But in general, like, they're a tool you can use in a bulk as well. So when you start to feel a little puffy and you're like, I want to give up on this bulk, I don't like it, I see extra fat because I've been bulking aggressively, that's where the mini cut can kind of keep you sane, and that can be a tool you can use. But in general, I do think most people could knock out bulk of a cut. But I do think it's really important you have an end date for a cut because it gives you a goal, it gives you something to achieve. When people feel like they're dieting endlessly, it's not very motivational. It doesn't really go a long way, and it kind of makes you just dread the process, whereas you're like, okay, I just got to get this done, get it out of the way. I got my reverse diet coming after this, and I'm going to maintain at 700 calories more than I was eating while I was cutting, or whatever it may be. And keep in mind, that's just a random number I threw out. Everyone's stats are so different, but that's how I like to look at it myself. And if you have a significant amount to lose, it's even good to look at what's happening in your life. Like, can you tie an unload week or a diet break in a time that maybe you are traveling, or a time when it's a week you really want to just lay back and enjoy yourself, or it's busy? And then are there better times for you to cut and worse times for you to cut? So I think really working with the individual and looking at all the factors present is how to best answer this question. But those are my thoughts here.
It honestly is so different based off of each person. I think like some, people, they don't realize that it's like there's no set answer. They think, oh, well, I saw like some bodybuilders, like they're like insistent on doing like 12 to 16 weeks. Like that's the time frame that works. But keep in mind that those people are like very dialed in for a specific show. Like there's a specific date. They're heavily deprived on everything. Like I could have someone comfortably for over 20 weeks, just like absolutely crushing it, energy level so high. And it's all dependent, right? It depends on what people's energy is like. It depends on their food satisfaction. It depends on how low we have to get the calories. It depends on their past dieting history, right? If someone comes to us and they have been wishy-washy dieting, that may not be counting towards dieting because they've been on and off for a while. Whereas some people, they may start with us and they've been dieting for a month. We have to consider that, hey, they've been doing almost 4 weeks of dieting. Let's take this into the equation. But the truth is, all in all, when it comes down to it, I truly believe every person will benefit from having someone by their side, especially because it's a very emotional thing. You're decreasing your calories. Your energy levels could be slightly lower depending on how low your, calories get and, how you react to it. But you make a lot of emotional decisions based off of sometimes being a little more fatigued, maybe having, different hormones taking place. Like it's not always like sunshine and rainbows. And the truth is most people fail because they don't have that person to make those adjustments. So, hey, reach out to us. I promise you, having me, our team, Josh, all that great stuff, be able to make those adjustments no matter what makes such a big difference. And like I said, it's my 30th birthday. I want to give back. I want to see you succeed with my money back guaranteed. So there's literally no risk involved. All you have to do is message me, birthday promo to ColossusFit, ColossusFit. And we wanted to say thank you for spending time with us today. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please share it to your story. Wish me a happy birthday on Instagram. And thank you so much for being here. Talk to you in the next episode.